Okay, so let's start a new file here and we'll build this from scratch. Just going to go File, New. And yeah, I'll save the changes on that last thing. Okay, and I'm going to call it last name. I want you to use this convention, last name underscore lesson number. I believe this one's 06B. It may be different on my site when you see it, so whatever it is, you'll just append your last name with an underscore and the lesson number. And I'm going to click Resolution Independence and make sure I'm on iPad Landscape. Click Create Project. All right, I'm going to do a save right away. Save. And here it comes. And it's going to ask me where do I want to save it. I do have a folder here called GameSalad Exercises, and I'll keep the same name and save that. So you do officially have to click Save ultimately to bring it into creation so that it's an actual file and not just sitting in your RAM waiting for your computer to crash. By the way, you should always save your file initially for that very reason, because if your computer crashed, your file wouldn't even be there. And save often. Alright, so here we go. So we're going to create some actors, and then I'll bring in those assets for the coin as well as the sound. Okay, so I'm going to create my first actor here, and I'll just call it wall. And I think I'm just going to start building as I create and build as I need. So the wall, I want to make it red. So I'm down in my actor attributes here. Click OK, and I think originally I made it 60 pixels by 60, so I'll stick to that program. 60 by 60. Okay, and I also know that I don't want the wall to move if it comes into a collision with something, if something collides into it. So I'm going to go down to physics. I'm just going to take care of business now and just turn off the movable feature. And while I'm here, I also want to turn bounciness down to 0. So that if there's a collision, I don't get this weird vibrating bounce, which is something you can try, but I'm going to avoid it here altogether. And bounciness is now set to 0. So we turned off the movable, we turned bounciness down to 0, we made it red, and we made it 60 pixels by 60 pixels. So you know what, I'm going to actually build that environment now before I move on to anything else. Okay, so I'm going to just create this edge here. And the idea is I want to contain this with a little doorway on the right hand side. So it doesn't need to be too pretty or anything, but just make sure everything is covered. So I'm going to alt click and drag here, make that second bar, and then drag this out, bring it down here, and let's see here, like that. And then I can alt click and drag that, and I may change the size of these. Yeah, I'm just going to make it a bit wider of a doorway. Whoops. Okay, there we go. And let's just save that for now. So there are my edges. I guess I might as well put that door in now. So I'll create another actor. I'll call it door or gate. I'll call it door. And establish a color. I'm just going to use this rusty orange color, I guess. Or maybe that's brown right here. Actually, I'm not very happy with that. I'm going to go with the rusty color. I know I'm fussy. And we'll keep the size as well, 60. Even though I'm going to stretch it on the screen, I'll at least start with a 60 by 60 square. My tab key. This also, I don't want it to be movable. So I'm going to go down to my physics. Uncheck movable. And we'll also deal with the bounciness on this. Pretty well the same features as the wall. Okay, and then I'll introduce that to the stage by dragging it. And I will just put it so that it's overlapping that doorway. And there's no way to get around it. Okay, so just a basic thing. All right, and again, I will save. And now I'll create, I guess I'll create the coins and the player. So we'll do those next two now. Actor, I'll call this one player. Okay, and I'll just make them green. And let's get a size going here. I'll say let's go 60 by 60 as well. We'll just to keep things simple. 60 by 60, hit my tab key. Now this one I do want to be movable. But I also want to turn the bounce down to 0 so that when it hits the wall, it doesn't bounce back, and it would create a vibration if I held the key down, and I actually want to avoid that. So bouncing this also down to 0. So everything bouncing this down to 0 in this assignment. Of course I want it to be movable, so we'll leave that checked. All right, and this is what I'm going to attach some movement to. But we'll just introduce him to the stage for now. Okay, just leave him there. All right, so you know what? We can do the moving now, and we'll deal with the coins next. All right, so there's my player. And I'm just going to pull the backstage screen up high. And I'm going to have just 4 very simple moves based on a key press. So let's see here. I guess we'll start with a rule. Okay, and I'll just type in here if a key. Press, and then I'll highlight that dialog box, and I'll start with the right. Right, do what? I want to add a move, so I'm just going to type in move here. These shortcuts are nice. That's something I don't think we have on the Mac, so yay PC. Direction, again, we're working in degrees. 0 is horizontal to the right, 90 straight up, 180 horizontal to left, 270 down. So this one, we're good with everything set as is. I'm going to keep the speed at 3. Actually, I'll bring that speed down to 200. Okay, 200 for the speed. Let's just see how that responds when I hit the right arrow key. There we go. And that is the speed I want. I don't want it faster. So really, I can just duplicate this and change the key and the direction. But I'm also going to name it move right. Okay. Oh, close that just so things are a little easier to manage. Alt click and drag, and I'll call this one move left. Okay, and I'll change the key. So highlight that, delete it, hit my left arrow key, and under the do, we'll change the degrees to 180 degree. Hit my tab key. Now I should have left and right. I hit play, right, left. So we'll do the same for up and down. Very straightforward here. Okay, so alt click and drag that rule as well. I'll call it move up. Move up. Replace the key to be pressed with the up arrow key. And under the do, change the direction to 90 degrees. Okay, hit my tab key, test it. You should test every one. Every time you do something that affects the game, you should test it. Okay, so I just need one more for the down motion. Alt click and drag. Change that, and I could type it in, but I'm just going to hit my down key and it automatically inserts the key name. And under the do, the downward degrees are 270. Hit my tab key, save my file. I should have been saving a little more frequently here, and test. Okay, right, left, up, down. Okay, and when I hit the wall, it shouldn't bounce. Oh, good thing I tested right. It shouldn't bounce, but it should collide. All right, so very quick. I'll just throw collide in there. So let's do that now. Just add, let's go to my behaviors here. I could type it in, but this one I will drag just to change it up a bit. Collide. There we go. And what do we say? Collide with walls. Wall and door, actually. So if I don't put a tag in, which I'm not going to bother, I'll just put 2 collides in very quickly here. So I can alt click and drag that one, and this one I'll say with the door. So now it can't go through the door either. Again, save and test. But this is why you test every time. Either by making a mistake or getting ahead of yourself like I might have done. You may miss something, so test frequently. And play. There we go. Now when I go, that's what I was expecting. And that's what I get. And you'll notice that it doesn't bounce, right? It just kind of thuds. Same thing for the door. It shouldn't be bouncing. It should just hit it and stop, and it does. Okay, so we've got our player all good to go. Now let's set up our coins. So I'll go to my actors. I'm just going to hide the stage here. And let's create a new actor called coin. And we'll actually throw in a little bit of animation on this. So, let's see here. I guess I can call back my backstage and we'll introduce an animate. Then I'll actually have to go and import those graphics, but just for now, let's introduce the animate behavior. And I will now go and add some assets. Now I do have a folder on the desktop. And where are you? There you are there. Okay, coin frames. I'm just gonna, you can go select all or you can drag across them. However you select them, you should choose them all. Control A would have done the same thing. Click open, there they are. And since I'm in import kind of mode, I'm gonna go get that sound as well. So I just gotta go back up to this folder. Now if you don't see it, just check down here. If it says image files, just choose all media files and that'll allow you to see every single file in that folder. And I do want the sound file. And there we go. I'm just going to save. Now I have all of my imported assets that I will need. And I want to apply these 10 coin images to the actor called coin. And I'm going to drag them into this little window for my animate behavior like this. And you can scroll through. They should all have come in by sequence. And let's just see. So actually I need to put it on the stage. So I'm just going to go back to my actors, drag a coin, drag it to this. Actually, oh, let me just set my size first, actually. I've been saying the word actually quite a bit. So just to keep things simple, I'm going to also make this 60 by 60 pixels. Drag that out onto the stage. And let's see what we get here. There we go. Okay, now if I stop it, you're just going to see that square box. It happens to be white. It's just adopting the background color for the preview. I could put a picture of a coin in there. Maybe I'll do that. Not necessary, but it might be a little more, I don't know, lends itself to being closer to the real thing when you're in preview. So I'll go down to image. I'll pick coin 10. There we go. So instead of a white box, now I will see that. And of course, once the movie starts playing, that gets overridden automatically by the animation, like that. Okay, so I just need to duplicate this guy 4 more times and randomly position them on the stage. And that'll take care of all the mechanical stuff, if you will. So Alt-click and drag. Let me just hide this guy here. All right, Alt-click and drag, and you can relocate these as you see fit to make the game more interesting or more challenging, whatever the case may be. And if I hit play, there are my 5 coins. And so what I want to do next is when I go over them, I want them to disappear. And I want to make a noise. And then for the final stages, we'll do our scorekeeper and our disappearing gate, if you will, as well as the threshold. So next step, I think, is to make these guys respawn when they collide with the player. So we'll do that inside of the coin. So I'm going to raise this backdrop up here, backstage up here. And let's see, I want a rule. Okay, and the condition will be collision. So I'm just going to shortcut this, collision, actor of type player. And what happens? 2 things happen. So far, we're going to add a 3rd thing when we do the score, but for now 2 things will happen. One is that it will destroy. And the second thing is it will make a sound, so that's called play sound. So play sound. And the sound that I want to play, which is the only one in my library, SMB_coin. So let's just save this and test this. Okay, there we go. Now if I go and bing, there we are. Okay. And that's how we create that effect. So the next thing is I will create the score keeping elements and the display. So I think the first thing I'll do is I'll actually create the custom attribute, which will be inside of the brain, if you will. And that's what will keep track of the score. And the score will be recorded. It will start as a default of 0. And anytime the player collects a coin, it will add 1 to the value of that attribute. And then we'll display the value of that attribute on the screen in a text box. So let's start by creating the attribute. and put it in the game tab, okay, not in the actor tab. It probably would work also in the actor tab, but this is a game feature. I think it makes most sense to put it under the game tab. So we'll just add a new attribute here, integer, and that's for numbers. And it's down here. I'm double clicking and I'm going to rename it score. Hit my enter key. So it does default with the 0. So we'll keep the value of 0 as the default. Okay, so now I have something to work with in the memory, if you will, something to keep track of numbers. So let's add that. Let me just change the rule name here to collide with player. Okay, just to add some clarity to that. Okay, so here I want to add to the attribute. So I'm just going to go use a change attribute. So I'm just going to type in ch, change attribute appears there. And I want to change the attribute called score, or change the value of the attribute called score to whatever it is plus 1. So we have to go under the set, choose the pull down menu, and we dig down under attributes, and this is in the game, and I believe it's at the bottom here, score. So I'm saying set score to, and here we go into what's called the expression editor. It's basically the same kind of box. Attributes, same thing. Game, we're going for the same thing, game score. All right, but in the dialog box, in the expression editor up here, and you have to do it here, you can't do it in that window or it won't work. We're going to add plus 1. So what that means is whatever the value of game.score is, it will be adding 1 to that value. And very importantly, check the green checkbox. Okay, so now we have a way of keeping score. Although this is only in the memory, we have to create something to display this, but we actually have the mechanism now to keep track of the score. So I definitely want to save that. So in order to prove this, we will need to create our display box. So let me just drag all of this guy, the backdrop down, the backstage down, and I'll create yet another actor. We'll call this display score. Okay. And let's see here, we'll go down to the actor attributes. And I'm going to add a display text. So we'll just display text. And this is where it gets, where you need to pay serious attention. We're going to delete this and we're going to input everything in the expression editor. You might think you can type in some text in here for what I'm about to do, but it has to be all done in the expression editor. So you click this expression editor, and in this little box here, we're going to add what I refer to as static text along with some dynamic elements. And the dynamic element will actually be the attribute. So the static text will be the word score with a hyphen and a space. Now the way we enter static text is it needs to be inside of quote marks. So quote marks, score, colon, space bar, close quote marks. And in order to combine this with the dynamic content, there's some syntax here that you have to abide by, which is double period. Otherwise it won't display. You need to put the 2 periods in. All right, so very importantly, the word score with the colon and the space inside of quote marks followed by the 2 periods, and then we drill down for the attribute in the game called score. And what this is going to do is it's actually going to display the value. So if it's 0 at the beginning, it'll say score colon space 0. All right, so that is how we actually apply dynamic information into a display text box. We're combining the dynamic information with some static text here. Okay, again, very importantly, click the green checkbox. So right now I'm looking at black text. I want to have it white text on a black background. So I'm going to change this to white. And click OK. Now, the text display is actually a box with text in it. And if you look over at the attributes, the background color for the box is currently white. So I have 2 options here. Because I have a black background, I could simply choose to make it black. And that would definitely work. No problem. But I want to show you something that gives you a little more power. So I'm going to open up the color. and scroll down a bit, because you have red, green, blue, and alpha. I'm actually going to change the alpha to 0. In other words, yes, it is black, but I'm actually going to make it invisible, which is, to me, it's even more powerful because then the color is insignificant. I'm just taking care of business. And it's just another way to show you how to affect the alpha of a bounding box in this case. So I just hit my enter key. So now it's actually truly invisible background with white text. So let's just drag that onto the stage. And I'm just going to open that up because you may need to open it up. I'm guessing I would have to open this up to allow for the full text to read. So let's see what we have here when I hit play. Before I do that, let me just save what I have so far. Play. And there we go. There's the word score, colon, space, and that's my dynamic text, if you will. Even though it's a numeral, it's dynamic text. In other words, it can change on the fly. And how do I change it? By going over a coin. One of the do's inside of the coin behavior is that it will add 1 to the attribute called score. And since this is displaying the value of the attribute called score, it will be updated right there. There we go. There's the proof. So let's keep going. And yeah, I might speed this guy up, but anyhow, that's just a finessing thing. And at this point, when the score is 4, I want to trigger this door to fade away and disappear. So that will be our next step now. So let me just go back to my editor. Again, I believe I saved, but let's just be sure here. So let's deal with the door now. So I'm going to click on door. And let's see here. I guess it'll be an interpolate. We'll start with a rule though. And the rule will be if the custom attribute called score is greater or equal to 4. So I'm just going to say attribute. Whoops, don't type it wrong or it won't come in. Attribute, so if. Let me click if. If what? If the game attribute called score is what? Is equal to? No, I want to say greater or equal to, so it's at least 4. And I'll put 4 here. So if the score is greater or equal to 4, do the following. And the following will be to do that thing called interpolate, which is like creating a fade. It really transitions the properties that we attribute to the behavior called interpolate. So let me just go in here, and I think I will do the typing shortcut again. Interpolate. And what do I want to interpolate? I want to interpolate the alpha feature of that door. So we will drill down. Attributes. So we are affecting the door now, and it's under color. And you see here, just like in the attributes here, red, green, blue, alpha, double click alpha. So I want to change the alpha to, as it so happens, it's defaulted to 0, and that's what I want to have is 0. In other words, I want to turn the alpha down to 0, which is another way of saying make it transparent. And it will do this over time. And this is the timer right here, and it's in seconds. So I'm just going to say, again, I'll use the default of 1. It will fade away over 1 second. Let me just save this and demonstrate this. It's incomplete, and I'll show you why when I demonstrate. Save, test. Okay, so I'll get the 4 coins. That's what will trigger that thing to fade away. Okay, so there it goes, it fades, but watch here what happens. It's still blocking. Even though it's invisible, it's still there. So I need to do a little bit more. I have to say, when it's completely faded, when alpha is down to 0, then destroy itself. So there's a second part that I need to add here. So I'm going to add, I guess I'll be adding a rule inside of the do. So I'll just type in rule. Okay, and I'll say when attribute, if the color, the door, color alpha equals 0, no, so I can leave that at 0. So if alpha equals 0, then self-destruct, and that's the destroy. There we go. Okay, so I'll just call this, I'll actually call it destroy. Okay. I'll just destroy when alpha is 0. That's a long one, right? But it does explain what's going on here. And I should learn how to spell, I guess. Alpha. All right. Whatever describes it for you. It's just good to have some kind of description. So that should do it for the gate. So let's save that and try that now. So now I should be able to drive through after I've consumed 4 coins. And here, so then it fades away, and then, so see, it's gone now. So I'm going to, one last thing on this screen. I'm going to put an invisible block in here so that when this collides with that invisible block, it will send us to a new scene. So we actually have to make the new scene first, and I'll put a little text dialog box in that new scene. Then we'll add this box and create a collision that will inform it to go to the next scene when the collision happens with the invisible box and the player. So let's go to scene, new scene. I'll call this next level. I think in my demo I called it win, but whatever, next level. Okay, so when you click on it, you are on the new scene. So I'm going to add another actor. Remember, all these actors apply across all scenes, but I'm going to add one more actor here. I'll call it next level text. Okay, and then in that, I will actually put in a display box, display text, and it's just static text. So I'm just going to say, yay, next level. Okay, and if I want it to be bigger, I can say 40. I'm going to make the text white. Okay, and just to kind of practice what we just learned there under actor, I'm going to go to my color. I'll leave it white here just to demonstrate that it works, and I'll set alpha to 0. Now the only thing is it'll be a white box on the screen, which actually could be helpful for location. Let's just test this quickly here. Actually, we need to go to our other scene and create the jump to scene. Then we will be able to see that that works. So the scene is there. I'm just going to save my file. Scene is there. It's got a text box on it. And let's just create our final actor. I will call it threshold. Threshold. So when we cross the threshold, we will be entering a new scene. And that, again, I can drag that in here and just position that behind here. And we'll make it invisible as well. Alpha 0, enter. Oh, undo. You know why? Did you see that screen go crazy? Let me put that back because I'm on the scene. Let me get my act together here and go on the actor tab. There we go. The actor tab. But you can see that you can actually change the background to your scene. So there you go. Something to learn even through the mistakes, right? Okay, I want to make that invisible. That's what I was after here. So under color, we'll change that alpha. Do that again with feeling. Change that alpha to 0 if I can. Sometimes I find them hard to double click, to be honest with you. And it's giving me a problem. So my little lateral solution here just to get around this, and you know, 1 out of 10 times, I don't know why it's hard to double click it. I'm going to make it black. This was not the way I intended to do this, but regardless, now it's black. Let me just make it smaller up here. It's what you call a lateral solution. Okay. There it goes. So when it hits that element, black on black, it's a little magician's trick. It appears or doesn't appear at all. It's invisible to the eye. And we'll attach one behavior to that based on a collision. So I'm just going to go collide. Actually, we'll do a rule. When it collides with actor of type player, we'll go to a new scene. So I'll just type in change scene. I can say next scene. It would work in this case. but I have one called Next Level, and that should do it. Let me save and test. Save. My play button. Go get my 4 coins. You see I can go on diagonals if I hit 2 keys at once. Okay, so that disappears. When I drive through, boom, I'm on the next scene. Okay, so that does conclude it, and it's all working now. So I'll just go back and we'll just run that one more time. Okay, 1 coin. See, my score is increasing each time. And then the gate opens, and I drive through, and I'm on the next level. So this is what I want you to create for me today. Then zip up your project folder, and of course upload it to Blackboard under the corresponding exercise. Okay, and there we go. That's our lesson for today.